Hello, I'm Mark DeLuzio. Over the past century, our constitutional republic, grounded in the rule of law, has been transformed into a tyrannical democracy, orchestrated by unelected bureaucrats and globalists. The Constitution is now treated as a suggestion, not the law of the land. Welcome to the Constitution Solution, one podcast under God.
Hi, I'm Mark's co-host, Suzette Lawrence. Our intention is to explore the Constitution and discuss how our freedoms and constitutional rights are violated by those very politicians who took an oath on the Bible to uphold it. Learn how the Constitution is the solution to our country's problems. What do we need to do to restore our inalienable and enumerated rights? Class begins now.
Welcome to the Constitution Solution. I have my friend Elsa Kurt. Elsa, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for coming on right before your rushed Christmas. I know you're real busy and you're going to be flying out to see your grandbabies and all that. But, you were on episode 29 way back when. And we did a lot of preliminaries, like, name, rank, and serial number, right?
You're
how many
right.
books you wrote. You couldn't even remember how many books you wrote. It's like, man,
I couldn't. Yeah.
I only wrote 2 in my life, and it's like, I think it's a big deal that I wrote 2. And when somebody says, "Hey, I don't know how many books I wrote," it's like that means you wrote a lot.
Yeah, it means you might have written a couple few.
We're going to talk about a couple of them today, at least one of them today.
Sure.
But this is episode 38. If anybody gives a damn, why would anybody care what episode this is? But I use them because I
feel
go
like
back
they
and
should
say,
care.
well, I can go back and say, hey, look at 29 for Elsa if you want to listen to that one, and
Right.
as well as this one. So anyway, Elsa, you and I met. Of course, I reached out to you a while ago, and loved your Kamala impersonations, and it's just mind-boggling that that's the best we had to offer. Wow, of 320, 30 million people, that's what we got. Okay.
Yeah.
And wow. Okay. Well.
Yeah, you summed that up perfectly. That's a head scratcher right there. Like
How did
really.
how did that happen, right? And
Mm.
but anyway, you did such a wonderful job with her, and and I've seen other people do it, by the way, but nobody comes close to you, in my opinion. So,
Oh,
um,
thank you.
but you
I'll pay you after the show for that one. I'll slip you a
oh
little
no, yeah,
cash
it's
for
going to
that.
be a double charge for that. Yeah, right. But actually, before we get going on some of this stuff, give me your thoughts on the election, because I know you and I kind of talked and texted and everything back and forth. But how you feeling about what went on? I know you're feeling good about it, but
Yeah.
what's your sense now? What are you thinking?
Yeah, sure. So, probably like everyone who's like-minded, we were ecstatic. I think the biggest feeling was relief. Like
Yeah.
I think I was on a high for like 5 days,
Hmm.
just I couldn't stop smiling. I was just so relieved and happy. And now that that's kind of settled a bit, now the euphoria, it's not that the euphoria is gone from it, but it's leveled off to a state of, okay, this is great. But and this is the thing I think that everyone should be feeling right now, that we don't just sit back and kick our feet up and relax now. We need to hold them as accountable as they say they're going to be,
That's
and
right.
that's our responsibility and that's our job. And that's what we need to do, and not get so bowled over by there seems to be a lot of starstruckness. I love making up words here. That's another made up one, I think. But
I like that
that
word.
we right? Starstruckness. Yeah. We'll go for it. We'll go with it. But yeah, I think that, we just need to be paying very close attention and holding them accountable, and keeping them to their promises and to the expectations that they've led us to have for them. So overall, I'm very, very pleased. I'm very happy with the selections that he's made. I know there's been, a couple few where people have been less than thrilled. But my feeling on that, on the ones that people are like terrible choice, bad idea, I don't think he's right for the job or she's right for the job. Um, for those, I would say think we all agree we have a very different Trump than we had the last time, right? He's a different man. He's a lot,
Absolutely. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And I think what's going to happen here is if they don't do the job that he has installed them to do, they're out. They're gone. Like, do your job or get out. And that's what I want to hear. That's what I want to happen. Like, do the job. If you can't do the job, we'll get somebody else who can. And so that's my hope that that's what he'll do. That you give him a chance or her to do the job. If you're not performing up to expectation, you're out. So, put that pressure on them. And I think that's good for all of us.
Well, I think you're right, and President Trump, first of all, has no problem firing people. So
Clearly. Yeah.
unlike his predecessor, Mr. Biden, there, I
Mhm.
refuse to call him president, but um, he didn't. I mean, there were so many calls for people to be axed in his administration, so many
Right.
screw ups, and those people that stayed there, and it was absolutely criminal to a degree. And you and I, and I've heard you and Clay talk on your podcast, which, by the way, if you guys don't see the Elsa Kurt show, it's a phenomenal podcast with her and Clay Novak. Clay's a veteran, a combat veteran, and has a wealth of knowledge about a lot of things. And they make a really good tag team. And
Thank you.
so if you want to listen to another good podcast, of course, this is the best one ever, right,
Of
Elsa?
course, duh.
Because you're on it. Because you're on it. Um,
Yeah.
but no, it is I really enjoy listening to you guys. And but one of the things, if and you talked about this on your podcast, and you and I talked about this. President Trump's been through so much,
Mhm.
and he's so unbelievably resilient. I mean, from the Russian collusion hoax, and that's all that was a hoax, and people should have went to jail for that, including Hillary.
Yes.
Um, to the two trumped up, forgive the pun, impeachments, which
Mhm.
were total BS. To the all the frivolous lawsuits, which are now coming to fruition that they had no basis in any merit, right, legal merit.
Right.
To the two assassination attempts, okay, to the attacks on his family, to the attacks on his wife, the Mar-a-Lago raid. I mean, go down the list of things that this guy had to put up
Yeah.
with. And
Tremendous list.
look what he did.
Yeah.
Virtually low zero inflation, the best economy in our history.
Hmm.
Interest rates at 2.8%, okay, for mortgages, 2.7. Um, Prices coming down, wages going up in all categories, all
Hmm.
demographics. Um, Taxes reduced. I mean, everything went the right way. And
Everything.
then on the foreign policy stage, what he did. I
Right.
mean, the whole Middle East Accord that he brokered, he should have
Hmm.
won three Nobel Peace Prizes. So you look at
Yes.
all what this guy did, despite the confusion and the interference.
Hmm.
Okay. So my view on this, and I think you might agree, is that I just look at these appointments, and who the hell is anybody to tell him who his team should be?
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean, everybody can have
absolutely.
their everybody can have. I have my opinion on some of them.
Hmm.
Okay,
Sure.
let the guy have his team.
Yeah.
Give him his team. Everybody, and this is the other thing too, Elsa. Everybody tried to be his consultant. Ah, Trump shouldn't do this, and the guy,
Right.
his first political position that he won on his own was the presidency.
Mhm. Yeah,
It
exactly.
wasn't a town council position or board of ed or a
Right.
mayor or anything. It was the damn
President.
presidency.
Yeah.
Okay. So who are we to consult with him and counsel him? He knows what he's
Right.
doing. Now
Yeah.
he did make some mistakes. I agree with you, because he
Sure.
didn't know who the swamp players were, like John Bolton and those guys.
Right.
Uh, but you said he's smarter now.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say his worst mistake back then was trusting people that should not have been trusted.
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
wolves in sheep clothing and the rhinos, very specifically. So yeah, a very different Trump this time around. Ironically, I think he is almost contrary in a way in his changes in that he's much harder in certain ways and much gentler in other ways. So we're seeing a much gentler the grandfather in him, the father in him. We're seeing these qualities in him that we didn't get to see the first time around, so we get to see the humanity of him. And I think that was a tremendous deal to do with that first assassination attempt. We see a very different man, but literally at the same exact time, we see that strength and resolve that you were talking about, that resiliency, that, you know, we kind of thought we knew was there, people who are fans or followers or supporters of his. But boy, oh boy, did he prove it then. I mean, wow. That image I have, somebody actually did like a painting for me. I had it behind me before, and now I took it down because I was moving things around, but it's of the fight
Oh yeah,
image, and they did a
yeah.
painting of it, and it's just so cool.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, and I think the people that he's surrounding himself with are top notch. And you're talking about people who are self-made millionaires. They can't be bought. They already have the money. They already have the power. They already have the influence. Nobody can buy them, and I think that's a really good thing. So
exactly.
we'll see.
I saw an ignorant post on LinkedIn just the other day,
Mm,
and it had the net worth of all of his appointments.
hmm
They're all multimillionaires or billionaires, as we know. Elon Musk is a billionaire. And it was a negative post by some guy in Europe saying, "Yeah, yeah, well, the United States now is going to be owned by these rich, tyrannical whatever." And my response to that post was this: "Yeah, okay, all of these people learned, demonstrated that they can create wealth.
hmm
Why would we want anybody else running our economy?
Right.
Why
Yeah.
when Pete Buttigieg said I'm the only non-millionaire running for president? Well, guess what? I don't want you running my. If you couldn't, as a politician, couldn't figure out how to be a millionaire, you're an idiot.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely. It's true. It's so true.
you know,
Yeah, yeah,
and,
we have
and
a very different perspective on this than they do, and it's also all the more laughable because what do they think is running the country right now? You got
right,
paupers running the country? You think
right.
these people all are leaving office, quadruple
That's right.
in their wealth, and they shouldn't be. They
That's right.
should not be leaving office wealthier than they came in. So there's a lot there to be said, but look at Pelosi, look at Biden himself. You look at all these people who are multimillionaires, all made while they were in office, and it does not line up with their salaries, right? So it's like, wait,
On a government
stop.
salary, exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
And someday you and I could talk more about the inner workings of how they do that, and
hmm
and especially in this bogus insider trading law that Obama passed in 2012,
Right.
uh,
hmm
where the penalty, by the way, is $200 for your first offense, and you don't have to
Wow.
disclose it. That's yeah, okay.
Such an
And so
insult. hmm
it's called stock, by the way, if you want to look it up. STOCK. Stop trading on congressional knowledge.
Hmm.
STOCK. It's all BS. And the people awarding contracts to defense
hmm
contractors can, in fact, own stock in defense contractors.
Yeah.
Okay. And guess what? I'm going to give you a $50 billion purchase order, and I
hmm
own your stock. Interesting. You know what's going to happen to that stock, right? Um,
Right.
so
I'm sure
anyway,
there's no correlation.
no, 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 no. Of course not. It's all independent. Yes, that's right. Um, but anyway, I want successful people running my economy. I don't want somebody
Same.
that couldn't figure out for themselves. Okay.
Yep.
And well, let's get back now to a little bit about the Biden administration and how he just let not only the illegal immigrants come in, but what happened to our crime. Okay,
hmm
and the assault they had on police officers,
Mm.
how
hmm
we let a police station burn,
Yeah.
how we how Kamala or is it Kamala uh, how she actually supported the Black Lives Matter and
Right.
funding the defunding of the police up in
Yeah.
Minneapolis. Okay,
Right.
which now she's of course said she didn't, but
Of
um,
course.
but when you look at the Constitution, right, and you and I talk a lot about the Constitution.
Right.
The founding fathers knew that without the rule of law, we cannot have a country.
hmm
We cannot have a country. We cannot uh, uh, do commerce with each other.
Right.
We, I mean, all of this, right? And
Oh, it's
so,
been proven over and over again, right? Anytime that you take any type of law enforcement protection away, Seattle's a great example of that.
yep, yep.
When they self-governed, how did that turn out? Absolute mess. You look at them taking away police, or not taking them away, but decreasing law enforcement presence in inner cities. Because remember, they all want to defund the police and they can do it themselves. They don't need the police. Well, the obvious happened. Crime rates, escalated to, double and even triple the numbers that they were prior. It gets proven over and over again. And yet every time they're like, no, 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 this time we're gonna do it right.
Yeah, well, that's a joke, and
Yeah.
and then telling the police to stand down too while people are
Mm,
being raped and murdered, and people lighting public buildings on fire. You need to
yeah.
stand down. Uh, so your husband is not only a Marine veteran, but he's also a law enforcement officer,
Yes, indeed. He is.
and
He
you
is.
you are what we call a Leo. Did I get that right? What's the W?
Oh yeah.
LEOW.
LEOW. Yeah, because we all love like the acronyms for everything. Yeah. Yeah. Law and all it is law enforcement officer wife. Yeah. So LEOW. Yeah. Wifey. Police
And
wife. Yeah.
you
You
wrote
can
a
go down the
book.
line.
Well, you wrote a book. By the way, the military, as you know, is filled with these three-letter acronyms. I call them TLAs. I have a TLA for a TLA, and
I like that. That's good.
but uh, but your book, which came out a few years ago,
Yep.
19 or 20, 2020, somewhere in that area. Welcome to the family, Life Beyond the Thin Blue Line. And
Yep.
one of the comments I read about it is it's a must-have survival guide for new Leo spouses. So tell us what
Yeah.
it's like to be a Leo spouse.
Yeah, sure. It's great. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a little history, a little background. So my husband and I had been together for almost 16 years. And when we first started dating, I had no experience in the law enforcement family world. So I never dated a police officer before. No one in my family was a police officer. I was raised pretty much the same way our generations were raised, that, you respect police, and
Yep.
that's kind of it. Like, end of the story.
Mhm.
These are people that you look up to. That's who you go to when you're in trouble, you need help.
Mhm.
So I had a pretty traditional view of police, but that was the extent of it. So when I met my husband, we started dating. One of the first things that he said to me in our conversations was, when he told me what he did for a living, the first thing that he said was, I'll understand if that's a pass for you, basically. And I was genuinely baffled by the statement. I'm like, why? I think what you do is great. It's a noble profession. He's like, okay, well, we've got a good start here, that you are on that side of things, that you believe that. But, there's a lot of people who don't feel the same way. And when I tell you that I was pretty naive, I came from a small town, low crime, all of the things. So I was truly in a bubble. I can admit that fully.
I know where you came from.
You know exactly, yeah. So this is no
Well, we won't
surprise to
mention it.
you.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
We don't have to mention it, right?
Mhm.
But
Right.
yeah, back in those days, definitely lived inside a happy little bubble. So, and he grew up inner city, just very, very different backgrounds for us. And so that was really interesting to me. And, I give so much credit to him for introducing me to law enforcement family life in such a way that it prepared me for the negativities and all of the downsides and all of that.
Mm.
Which I was able to see very, very quickly, because it started almost immediately. We became serious. next level the relationship into a relationship. And, when I would tell people I'm dating a police officer, the comments, the things that people would say actually shocked me, and which was good. It's, believe it or not, it's all a good thing. And this is kind of the stuff that I want to prepare people for, spouses, girlfriends, whatever the case, family members, as they get involved in this lifestyle, that you are
Yep.
going to encounter people who have no problem saying terrible things to you,
Yep.
anything that range from their murders with a paycheck, or they get paid to murder innocent people, to they're serial cheaters, so get ready for a life of being cheated on, to they are all abusers, they're gonna, you're gonna end up with a black eye. Like, the things that people would say were like crazy to me. And I'm looking at him going, this guy, this guy's a sweetheart. Like, I know what he's capable of in his profession, in his career, but in his personal life, in our personal life, he is like the dearest man you could ever meet. So, which I think speaks for a lot more men and women in the profession than it does otherwise. You're always, every profession has,
Yeah.
what everybody likes to call the bad apples. That's the
Yeah. Right.
given. I mean,
That's right.
such a, obvious statement, I feel like.
Hmm.
Um, but I wrote the book because I wanted people to, not only be prepared for the negatives, but to also be prepared for the positives. Because for
Right.
me, there's so much more positive that comes with this life, than negative. And, the negatives or the positives are worth the negatives, because you get so much out of it. And yeah, so it was kind of like a no holds barred kind of thing. And of course, I always say it's, my perspective. Everybody has a little very different variation of
Sure.
the experience. But I wanted the positivity to come through more than anything. I didn't want it to be a deterrent, because you hear that enough. People will tell you the minute you say you're dating a police officer, you're gonna, the first comments are gonna be, from women, it's gonna be, oh, nice, because women are just awful. We love a man in uniform. So, that's one of the positive-ish comments that you'll get. But then that turns very quickly into, oh, so it goes from oh to oh, because the reality is, it's different than the little fantasy that people think that it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. And I guess sometimes I think the government throws ignorance into our drinking water because there are a lot of ignorant people that say stupid things. Let me ask you this question.
Mhm.
So you met your husband, you said 16 years ago.
Mhm.
Okay. And you started getting involved with being a partner and eventually a spouse of a law enforcement officer back then,
Right.
a decade and a half ago.
Mhm.
How has it changed now? Okay, like today, if you, what would somebody face to compare and contrast like today versus when you met your husband? How different is it, and is it different?
Yeah, yeah. And and my husband pointed out at one point during this whole wave of everything that it's cyclical. It really is. There are periods of time in our history where, police are considered the enemy, and then they become the heroes, and then they're the enemy again. And, during the course of our relationship, I've actually seen both. During COVID, they became part of that whole, we love our first responders team, and that changed very quickly. So it's gone back and forth in our time frame. However, the majority of it, I'm sorry to say, has been the negative, where
Yeah.
it's been, the hatred and contempt and disrespect, for law enforcement, has been the majority of my personal experience in this lifestyle. And it started very early on when we were in our relationship. And one of the best things for me that came out of it was it showed me that I am a lot tougher than that sheltered little small town girl assumed she would have been. or anybody would have assumed I would have been probably.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, it taught me that I'm actually a pretty tough little bird. And the more that people would come at me with the negativity and the hostility and come at him indirectly through me with that, the more fierce I actually became. And it was what actually brought me, I guess you could say, like out of my shell. And that was when I started to be, a very vocal pro police advocate through social media mostly. And yeah, and I did what us smart conservatives do. I armed myself to the teeth with facts and information so that anytime somebody would come at me with one of these, fallacies, I was able to, give that rebuttal to them with facts and statistics and data and just intellect over their emotions.
How dare
And
you? How dare you use facts?
you know,
Shame on you.
like the worst thing you could do to anybody, use facts against them. Yeah,
Well,
and
you've got
and that's, that's
good
something
for
that I
you.
talk about.
Good for you.
Go ahead.
Good for you. No,
Oh,
no, I'm saying good for you.
thank you. Yeah, I think it's important, because a lot of people, not just law enforcement spouses, people in general, it's really hard to go against the grain. It's hard to go against the crowd, the masses, and in this case, of course, you have politicians, social media, the media, all essentially against you, and or at
Yep.
least seemingly against you, because those are the most vocal ones. That's who you hear from the most. It's the rest of us, and I include my former self in that. We didn't want to be bothered with anything, like, just, that's going on over there, don't bring it over here, and if I don't comment on it, then I don't attract that attention on me. So a lot of people will just quietly support. I would get so many messages in those earlier days from people on social media, because like I said, I was became very vocal, and I was fighting everybody and anybody, and putting on my war paint and loving it. And my poor husband, through that whole thing, he's like, "You don't have to do this. It's okay." I'm like, "It's not okay. It's not okay. They're not going to do this. They're not going to get away with it. Not on my watch." So he unleashed a little psychopath, basically. A
Do you think
psychopath for
God?
good.
No, it's a good psychopath. Uh,
Yeah, good
do you
psycho.
think God dropped him into your life for a reason? I mean,
Oh, absolutely. 100 bajillion%. Yes. And I look back on my life, and he looks back on his life, the trajectory of everything. It's, you can't see it as any other way than basically God ordained or God directed.
Mhm.
And all these little things. We have so many conversations now that, it's so cool. Isn't it great? Marriage is like the coolest thing. Having like a best friend for life is just the neatest thing you could ever have. And to be able to still, all these years in, and I'm sure you can attest because you've got more time in than I do,
It sounds
you
like a
still
jail
find out
sentence. You have more time in.
time in. Should have rephrased that. I should have rephrased that, right? We're
No, I
going
got
with
it.
it though. We're gonna keep it.
I got it. I got it. That's good.
You know what I mean. Um, but yeah, and you still find out new things, which I think is really, really cool. And, he was talking about a time period in his life that,
Yep.
as I related it to the same time frame in my life, we had such opposite things going on, but there was this thread that is woven throughout all the 16 years, and even, of course, before we even met, that, we thought we had no connections beforehand, and then we find these little threads that actually
Hmm.
tie you
Hmm.
together, and it's just wild,
Hmm.
absolutely wild to me.
Well,
Yeah.
you and I talked about last time, I think, how you've got so many talents, right?
Thank you.
And you and we talked. You and I think, agreed that everything, all the talents and experiences that I have been given, the opportunities and the people I've met, including you, and you as well, in terms of your talents and experiences and people you've met. Um, those are gifts that are on loan to us.
Right.
And did you ever consider that, God's sitting there looking at you saying, hey, I gave her these gifts, but I got to wake them up somehow. What am I going to do?
Mm,
Oh, I know. I'm
yeah.
going to introduce her to, and all of a sudden, boom, it opened up the door, and look at you now, right? And so
Oh yeah.
you had it all along,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
maybe you needed the stimulus because maybe where you grew up maybe didn't apply that stimulus, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
It's
And
funny that you say that because, many years ago, my husband said to me, something very similar. He says, who knew that this is the things that you would be doing and all of that. And he's like, you're a crusader. Like you need a cause. And that is so true. Like I'm a very purpose driven person and I need to, you give me a cause, you give me something to believe in, and I will to the death, defend and protect whatever that might be. And raising my children, of course, it's been my children and my grandchildren now, and my husband, if for as much of a protector and defender he is, it
Mhm.
actually, for me, it makes me even more so one for him, because I know who he is at his heart, and I think I can speak for so many law enforcement officers out there and their
Yep,
spouses and partners
yep.
and family members where we know who they are. We know the heart behind what they do and why they do what they do. So for me and people like me, it's like the very least you can do is have their back, and not be afraid to very loudly have their back, and this is the only way because silence has put us in the position that we're in now, and I think I started to say before, I used to get a lot of messages from people that would say things like, oh, I totally agree with you. I'm so proud of you and I'm proud of your husband and we really respect what he does, but I don't want to get involved on anything on social media because, that people in my family or my friends or my coworkers will come at me and I don't know how to deal with that. And I used to say to that, no problem. I understand. I'll take the heat. I'm fine with it because the more I do it, the more I realize I am so fine with it. Does not
Mm.
phase me even a tiny bit. Um, but now I've kind of gotten to the point where it's like, you know what? I love doing it, but you need to do it also. You need to speak up, you need to
Absolutely.
stand up, right?
Mm.
And and I think that's what's happening. I think so many people have come to that realization all on their own without me needing to tell anybody. They came to that realization
It's
to
starting to get
themselves.
better. Yeah. And I think a lot of it's getting better because of people like you, okay, and your podcast and you and Clay and speaking out. And when you and I did that one episode on the Constitution and the other one on the Declaration, I should say, we
Hmm.
did both. What the founders had to go through to sign their name to that document was a death sentence.
Yeah.
And all these woke people who criticized these guys as being old white men and slave owners, although they wanted to abolish slavery, they never would have signed. The people that I know that have those statements, those ignorant statements, never, never Elsa would have put their name on that document.
You're so right. You're so
Okay,
right.
never.
Hmm.
And your husband would have. You would have.
Yeah.
I know you would have.
Yeah.
There's a certain Ted Nugent. And I talked about this as well.
Mhm.
That I asked him. I said, "Hey, would you have been the guy signing that document?" He said, "Sign the document. I would have been at Concord shooting those damn redcoats."
Yeah, he would. Yeah, he would.
Oh
There's
yeah,
no question
Ted's
about
a
that.
patriot. Yeah, he's a patriot.
Yeah.
But let me ask you. So I always have try to bring my kids up to respect law enforcement, the military.
Hmm.
We used to dress them up in little army uniforms to go to Westover Air Force Base to see the guys coming back from Desert Storm, right?
Hmm.
And they would salute and all that, and police too, right? And
Yeah.
I think I told you the story. I was at a hockey game in Phoenix with my grandson. He turned 10. He's 15 now, and uh,
Wow.
and they had all the Star Wars characters running around the stadium out in the lobby and all that. And he says, "Hey, Poppy, can we get a, picture with the Star Wars characters?" I said, "Yeah, sure, but first we have to get a picture with those guys over there." And there's two police officers standing there. So I
Oh.
walked up to them and I said, "Hey guys, can we take a picture?" And they were like surprised. It's like, "Whoa, really?" I go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're trying to teach them to respect the police."
I love it.
and I let him know that these are the guys that matter. Okay, not the guys on
Yes.
the ice. No disrespect to them, but not the guys on the
Right.
ice, and not these Star Wars characters. These are the guys that really matter.
Yeah.
So that's how we try to bring our kids and my grandkids up as well. And I think I sent you my poem on what I thought a hero was, right? And to
Yeah.
me, my personal opinion is a hero is somebody who, and I'm going to ask you this question, and you don't have to answer it, but
Okay.
but uh, when my definition of a hero is when your loved one leaves the home,
Mm-hmm.
and in the back of your mind, you're thinking, is he or she coming back?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and is that something that goes through your mind, or you kind of block it out? Everybody handles it differently, so that's a question I want to ask you. How,
Yeah,
how
sure. So in the in those early days, when the relationship became very real, his comment to me that he made that first time he told me what he did for a living came back to me. And I understood it on a different level. You know, when he first said it, he meant it in a, hey, listen, a lot of people don't like cops. And if you're one of those people, I totally fine. We'll go our separate ways. No harm, no harm done. When you become invested, emotionally invested with somebody, that question came back and it was, I understand if you don't want to be a part of this lifestyle, it's not for everybody. And the new meaning of that became like now you have this impending sense of exactly what you just said, really, that you don't know what each day work. Most people leave for work in the morning and it's pretty predictable and it's pretty safe. And of course, there's always a chance that somebody doesn't come home. Accidents can happen, but you're talking about a profession where they choose to
right,
be potentially in the line of fire or danger. It's a choice, every day that they make. And to add to that, for the sake of people they don't even know, for the sake of people who hate them, so
right,
you add these
right,
layers, right? And this
right.
new dimension to it. And I was struggling with it a little bit early on, that fear and that worry that, I was checking in on him, like everything okay, well, it's not that I heard sirens, but you'd see something on the news because he was working in a different town.
Sure.
Um, which led to another deeper conversation of like you can't live your life in fear. You can't stay in that mental headspace because it'll paralyze you. He said it would paralyze me. So I can't go to work with fear, being afraid. And you can't live your life, our life together in fear. And and it took a little while. It took probably a long while. I still, he's got a great shift now, because he's part of the brass now. So, he's got a regular schedule. But when we first met, he worked midnights for a long time, many years. And, I still have that habit of sleeping with the phone on the pillow, and all of those things. And it's just things that you do as a law enforcement spouse, and I remember, he would call, he'd be on, working, and he'd call and I'd be out with a group of friends or family, whatever. And I would, stop them like mid sentence, not even with an apology, just answer the phone because you don't know what the phone call is. So yeah, it's very, very different. It's very different to live like that. And if you don't put it in a healthy mental headspace, you're gonna fall apart. You're just gonna fall apart. And as you can imagine, that's where faith and trust in God come in. That I'm gonna put all of my fears and worries and turn them into prayer, and that's it. So that is the extremely long-winded answer to your question. I turn every fear and worry, I turn it into prayer, because and gratitude. You can't be afraid and grateful at the same time. You just can't do it. So that's
Great
that's the
answer.
way I handle it.
That's a great answer. And, I hope people realize that being married to a first responder, police officer, fireman, the family serves too.
Mm, yeah.
The family serves, and people sometimes don't get that, right?
Hmm.
And all those things that you just said, and all the things you had to go through to cope, and it's just it infuriates me when people say dumb things
Yeah.
and don't think and don't even understand what the hell they're talking about. You know, I remember one time this happened right before Stephen died. He was in Afghanistan, of course, and before he got killed over there, it was about a month earlier. I was talking to him on the phone. You know,
Mm.
he had cell phone ability, and I was complaining to him about a relative who posted something really a liberal relative, which, by the way,
Mm.
that's redundant. I have very few that are not, but we posted something really stupid on Facebook. You know what he said to me? He said, "Dad," he was 25 years old. Okay, he said,
Mm.
"Dad, let them say stupid things. That's why we fight."
Oh, mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
It's so true.
it's a selfless job that your husband's doing for the
Yeah.
people that will spit on him. Okay,
Hmm.
but he still does it.
Right.
Thank God. Thank God we have people
Yeah.
like that. He was a Marine. No, sorry, take that back. He is a Marine because you're
Yeah,
always a Marine.
I had to learn that correction
Yeah,
early
you're
on.
always a Marine. But
Yep.
I thank God for people like that. Okay,
Yeah.
and that would be able to step up and risk their lives for us and for our freedoms and
Hmm.
for our way of life, which is a real big thing. Well,
Yeah.
and by the way, when Stephen died for like 6 months, Elsa, I was paranoid. Like the
Mm.
phone rang, like, okay, who died
Sure.
now? Because this stuff doesn't happen to me, it happens to somebody else, right?
Right.
And I finally did exactly what you said. I said, you know what?
Mhm.
I'm gonna let God take care of me. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna worry about it anymore. I'm gonna put it on His shoulders. I asked him first, and, yeah, and I think he said yes. And uh, and I said, I'm not going to let this. I can't let this destroy me because then
Right.
the Taliban wins twice, right?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
you know,
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when you before I embraced my faith and truly just accepted the love of Jesus and everything that's wonderful that comes with that. Um, I fathom, could not fathom how anybody could survive what you've experienced. I can't like it still breaks my heart to even think about you going through that, your wife going through that, anyone going through that kind of loss. And I always would sit there and say, when I hear things like that, um, how do they even how do they get up in the morning? How do you even function? How do you do any of the things? And then when you discover faith, then you understand, then you get it, then you
right,
understand
right. It's the
that
only
is
way.
how.
That's
That's
right.
the absolute
Yeah.
only way. And boy, oh boy, I tell you, if I had a wish for anybody in the world, because there's so much suffering and there's so much hate and fear and worry and negativity, so much of that and so much, well, all of it would be cured by faith, just embracing that and
Absolutely.
accepting that love. It is so life changing. I want that for everyone. People get mad at you when you tell them that, you want them to find Jesus, and of course I can't, because I'm still childish, I'll say, you need Jesus. For some reason I have to affect some kind of Southern accent, a really bad one, obviously. But I mean it. It's like, oh my gosh, that's what you need. That's like literally what you need. It will change your life. It'll change your perspective. It just there's that peace that you find in that, right? And so that, honestly, I could probably answer every question just by saying, Jesus. That's how. It'd be a
Well, if you
boring
want to use
interview,
your
so I won't
southern,
do that to you, but
if you want to use your southern accent, you come down here to my new home in North Carolina. So,
oh,
because we got that here, and so far so good. We really like it here. But, it's interesting because I don't know. I just look at your resilience, and and you say, well, Mark, how did you put up with this? How do you get up every morning and all that? And sometimes it's hard to get up, but
Hmm.
but the grief monster comes in once in a while and zaps you, But then I kick his ass and I get him out of here.
Yeah.
But the thing is though, one of the gifts that God gave me, He also gave you, and that's stubbornness. So
Mm-hmm. He
and
gave a
so
double
that
dose.
yeah, but I had to say Jesus did screw up a little bit with Stephen. He made him
Mm.
a Yankee fan. Okay. Yep.
Oh, what
Yep.
was he
And
thinking?
so, that's one thing that I still have to talk to Jesus about once I meet him up there
Gotta
somewhere.
reconcile that somehow,
Yeah. I
right?
said, hey, what's going on with the Yankee thing, man? Come on. You know that. I'm a Red Sox fan. Uh, but no, but anyway, so speaking of which, okay,
Mm-hmm.
not the Red Sox. Coming out Christian.
Mm.
It's a kind of like a podcast.
Yeah, kind of,
Yeah.
sort of. Yeah, yeah. So of course, as you know, as you were so kind to mention, I have the Elsa Kurt show, which is
Right.
basically social political commentary.
Yep.
And then I have, of course, my social political comedy that I do, many hats. And then um I had this conversation with God, and I said, I'm so, so grateful. I'm so blessed and so fortunate, and I don't deserve it any more or less than anyone else. So there has to be, again, there's that purpose-driven life mentality that, there just guide me um to do your will, like to do what I'm supposed to do. Like, I'm so blessed to have the platforms that I have. I
Yeah.
don't understand the how or why. I think it's so crazy to me. Across all of my platforms, if you added them all up, I'm close to 1 million followers across all these platforms.
Wow.
And I'm
Wow.
just this, like, it's so crazy. I'm just this 53-year-old married mom, grandma of three grandchildren. Like, why? Like, why are people paying attention to anything that I'm doing? I don't think I'm any better at it than anyone else. In fact, I don't think I'm even half as good as so many people out there doing similar things to what I'm doing. So why am I so blessed? And I don't know if I'll ever get the answer. So my attitude was, well, I just need to pour out all of my gratitude, and the only person I can think of to thank properly, of course, is God. So let me do that by sharing what I'm learning, sharing my faith journey with
Mm.
people. And, I call myself a baby Christian. And so I'm just, and that's what coming out Christian really is. It's just me sharing all of these. I'm like a kid with a new toy every time I open my Bible and every time I go to church. It's just this new present is unwrapped for me. And it's like, I can't believe I've been missing out on this my entire life. Like, this is so crazy. And I just want to learn and absorb everything. And then, of course, share what I'm learning. And so, yeah, so that's what that's all about. I get to, it's so crazy to me. Like I said, I'm like a kid with this. I like, it's so crazy to me that I get this opportunity to share my faith and share my love of God and share God's love for all of us. Um, and even if just like one person decides to open their heart because they watched my video, oh my gosh, then I'm doing his work. I'm doing the work that he
You
sent me
did
to
your
do.
job. You did
Yeah.
exactly right. By the way, I hate to break it to you, but I subscribe to your podcast 999,999 times. So uh, it's only one. You only got one.
Darn it.
So
Well, you know what? One is better than none. I'll take it. I'll take it. You'll be
see,
my,
that's a good attitude.
I'll take it, right?
That's a
I,
that's a
I was
very
just as excited with, 20 followers as I am with the, whatever it is now. So it's just, oh my gosh, I figure I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And, of course, people come out with their negativity, and, and I find a lot of content out of that. I just make fun of it, and just, it's amusing to me.
no. You're always going to get that. Hey, look, like I told my friend Paul Gosar, who is a congressman out of Arizona, one of the
Mhm.
more conservative congressmen. Um, the Cheneys were coming after him. They have a pack that they go after him, and the same goes for President Trump. When they're coming after you, you know you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so
Really,
true.
I
You're
mean,
right.
if you are not being effective with your message and with your beliefs, and we talked a little bit about in one of our episodes with you, the whole Marxist agenda, which
Mm,
a part of that is tearing down God, and
right.
they want you to honor and pay homage to the government, not to any being. And the Constitution, as you and I talked about, my podcast is called Constitution Solution: One Podcast Under God, and it was based on the foundation of Christian principles, and our country doesn't work without that faith that you talked about. So it's important to bring that back,
Yeah.
and I think we're starting to get there, but we got a long way to go because it's been
Yeah.
destroyed. It's been really been destroyed a lot,
Mm,
but it was. I just want to maybe end this with tell you a little bit of a story. A couple weeks ago, I went to New York City for it's called the Coolidge event. Calvin Coolidge is probably one of the most constitutional presidents we ever had, but really low key, and nobody really knows much about him.
mm.
And there's a big foundation there. And every year I've been going to this thing with a billionaire friend of mine that invites me. And I got to sit right next to Heidi Cruz, Ted Cruz's wife. And we had a
Oh.
really, really good conversation about, she got kind of personal about some stuff. Um,
Mhm.
and we had a good conversation. But George Will spoke this time. Okay. And I was always lukewarm about George, but he had a really, really good uh, talk. And I'll summarize it this way because it ties into what you're saying. He said, our inalienable rights, the rights that come from God,
Mhm.
and that yearning for you as a human spirit to be free, to raise your family, to flourish, to pursue your happiness, all those things, all those inalienable rights that the Declaration talks about, right, are inherent in your DNA. God put
Mm,
them into our DNA as human beings. And whenever you see a force trying to take those away, they may be successful in the short run, but not in the long run. Especially with our frame of government, the way we're structured, albeit it's being, our frame of government is being trampled on constantly. Um, he said this last election was evidence of this wokeness and this stuff that tearing down our families. Because if you look
right.
at progressiveness, which basically means they have a disdain for the Constitution, and you look at
Mhm.
liberalism in general, they only destroy things. They don't build things up. Okay.
Right.
And they'll destroy the police, the protection. They'll destroy the military. They'll destroy our economy. They'll, go down the list, right? And he said, "This you can only do that for so long because of this desire that we have to to these inalienable rights that God put into us. It can only last for so long, and
Right.
the only reason it doesn't last if you have an absolutely tyrannical government that just basically kills you,
Mhm. Yeah.
like Stalin did, like Lenin did, like Mao Zedong. I mean, go down the list of all the tyrants. Hitler.
Mm,
You don't agree, you're dead. Okay,
right.
and so now you're not around to have that desire to be free. So the bodies are littered. The history is littered with bodies of people who did decide to remain silent.
Yeah.
That's why I admire you so much in terms of what you're doing, because there's a
Oh,
lot of ramifications of you, both physically and also professionally and everything else
sure.
of reaching out the way you do, and so I do admire that about you, and which is
Thank
why I
you.
initially wrote to you, so that's how we met. So uh,
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words so much. Yeah. I always say to everybody, just pity my husband, the poor guy. I've given him all the gray hairs he has now. They are all due to me, not due to the job stress. I give him all this stress. Yeah, because I mean, he's a man who cares. And I tell him the biggest thing I tell him is for several years now is don't read the comments, babe. Don't read the comments. Don't worry about it because you're going to want to, you're going to want to fight people. You're going to want to defend me. You're going to want to, scare them off, all of the things. And, all you need to know is I am profoundly unaffected. I saw a great little thing, and this is kind of directed towards anyone who is fearful of other people's opinions, and whether they're people you know or strangers that you don't know on the internet. Um, One of the greatest things I saw was that somebody had asked, I said, well, how do you not be afraid? How do you do that? As a fearful person, how do I not be afraid? And the answer was, well, you pick 5 people in your life, um, and those are the only opinions that you care about. Like and they have to be 5 people who's, of course, 5 people that you respect, that you admire, who you trust beyond measure, and who have your best interests truly at heart. And if they tell you that that dress looks ugly on you, it looks ugly on you. If they tell you that you're wrong, you're probably wrong. And if it's anybody else telling you those things, if they're not part of your 5, then they don't matter. And that was such a perspective shift for me to say, wait a minute, you know what? That is so accurate. And I'll tell you, the most obvious first 2, of course, are God and my husband. And those are truly the first 2 people's opinions. Not that God is a person, but you know what I mean. Um,
No, I do.
those are the first 2 who, if I read something or somebody says something to me and it gives me pause for thought, I'm like, well, is what they're saying, you go down that list, is what they're saying true? Is it kind? Is it blah, blah, blah? Do all those things. But for me, it's really like, well, if it's not coming from these 2 sources, then there's a very high probability that this person does not have my best interest or truth or kindness, at their heart, and they don't matter. So that would be, again, long-winded advice I would give to anybody. Like, pick
Nice
your 5,
advice.
right?
Nice.
Pick your 5 and stick with it.
I said to my wife the other day, I'm looking in the mirror and I said,
Mhm.
my hair's turning gray. I look a little overweight with this jacket on. Diane, tell me something positive. She says, your eyesight is perfect.
I knew that was going to be, I knew something funny was going to come.
You know, it's funny though.
I've
I was
already
at
told
the
you I love your wife already. I haven't even
oh,
met your wife and I
oh
already
no
love
no
her.
you'll meet her. Don't worry.
I can't
We'll be
wait.
coming up.
We're going to
By
have
the
a
way,
blast.
I was at motor vehicle the other day, right? And I got my new license, and I was making these girls crack up. We had a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
she looks at my Arizona driver's license and it says hair brown. And she says, do you still want to keep it brown or what? And I said, are you saying my hair is gray? Are you colorblind or something? And all the girls are cracking up, right? All right,
Oh,
put down gray. I said, put down. I don't dye my hair. Put down gray.
yeah.
And they're just laughing. It was really
That's so
funny,
cute.
But Elsa, this has been great. I'll let you. I know you're busy and you got a lot of things to do for Christmas. Let's catch up after the first of the year. And
I would love that. Thank you so much
yeah.
for having me on.
Oh no,
Appreciate it.
I love it, and we got to do more of this because there's so much more to talk about. And give my best to Clay and to your husband. And well, I
I
haven't
will.
met any of those guys yet, but and Merry Christmas and
Same to you. Same to
yeah.
you. Absolutely. I look forward to chatting again and again. Thank you for having me on and let me run my mouth this whole time. I appreciate it.
You didn't run your mouth. You didn't run your mouth. And by the way, I can't believe God would ever say to you, he doesn't like your dress. Okay. So I don't see that
I
in his
know.
repertoire.
It's too
That's
kind. He maybe would say that's not appropriate, like young lady, not appropriate. Then that would be fine.
he would say that. Yeah.
He would say that.
Okay, Elsa. We're gonna cut it off here, but this was episode 38. Go back to episode 29 and listen to Elsa's first appearance on our show. A lot of good stuff on that one too, and we will definitely have you back again and talk more about the events as they transform, and maybe get a little bit deeper into some of the things going on in the police force, the military, our politics, and maybe when Trump takes over and starts moving uh, and getting things done, because he is a guy that does that. We'll have a lot to talk about. So, okay, episode 38. Constitution Solution. Elsa, Kurt, thank you very much. Thanks for listening to the Constitution Solution, one podcast under God, where we hold that strict adherence to the Constitution is the solution to most of our country's problems.
You can find other episodes on our website at 1787solution.com, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and most other platforms. We're your hosts, Mark DeLuzio and Suzette Lawrence. Until next time, may God bless you and may God bless America.